Let me tell you a story. A story about eggs, donuts, and face touch. Pidgey hunts. Welcome to a new Monster Hunter journal journey, where I will chronicle my experience through Monster Hunter Stories 2, the Wings of Ruin, not the Rings of Wooing. Anyways, if you want my initial impressions, those will be fine in my review of the demo, since the demo is the start of the game. This journal picks up from where I left off, which was killing the Puke, and what has changed since then. So I tried the demo on Nintendo Switch. After looking at which version performed better, I ended up going with the PC version because A, it's easier to stream for me, and even though it's minor negligible performance improvements from what I can tell, it's still the most optimal experience for all of you who are watching the stream. So I went with PC. Plus, I love that it unlocks Steam achievements, and I just prefer Steam achievements over Nintendo Switch built-in achievements that are not platform related. So with that, we went PC. I don't know if there was anything different in how I set up my camera, but one complaint I had in the demo was the camera. It felt a lot smoother now, so I don't know if I just set it up right or if they fixed it since the demo or if PC's just better. I doubt it's the last one. Either way, I've gotten over my camera issues with Monster Hunter Stories 2, and the game plays wonderful now. Another thing, I put it out to a vote if we should play the game in Japanese audio or English audio, and the chat has voted English, so we're playing this fully in English, and it's not as bad as I thought it would be. I usually, especially games that have like a little bit more squeaky voices in them, like this game, I prefer going to the Japanese audio just because, well, A, I don't understand it all the way, and it just kind of like fits the scene better. To me, Monster Hunter Stories 2 feels like an anime, so having Japanese audio with it feels better. But I'm pleasantly surprised to say the English voiceover is actually really good, and I have no issues with it. So I'm really enjoying it in English with English voiceovers. So now, this is going to be all over the place. I've gotten to the third village, so I've just made it into the mountainous snow area, and I'm going to be pretty much covering everything that's happened since we killed the Puke to how I got there, and it's all over the place, so I'm just going to be all over the place. Starting with the game's armor. I just love how armor is presented in this game. I actually prefer it over, I know this would not work in classic Monster Hunter, but I prefer it that it's like you just need all these pieces and you get a full armor set. You don't have to build it piece by piece. For this game, that works. I get that you wouldn't want that in the classic Monster Hunter, but I love the fact that I can just go out, harvest a few parts, and I have a full armor set with pre-configured color schemes. So I've been editing all of my armor pieces. I'm actually inclined to collect all the armor pieces because they all look so like really good, and I just love the fact that I can like easily color swap. I'm the type of person that's not that creative, so if I have too many options, I get overwhelmed. I actually like how this game kind of narrows in your options for coloring, and they're like, here's, I think it's 8 or 10 choices, pick from this. And I'm like, you know what? I'm happy with these options. I know some of you might not be, but for me, it just makes it so much easier. I'm like, I like this one. And I don't have to go like through a whole color wheel and build some magical armor set. I have to say, I am absolutely sad that KAYNA is a temporary partner. That she was waifu material. I loved her character, I loved her design, I loved everything about her, and I had to leave her behind, which was my first real sadness in this game. If that was what they were going for by making you leave the island to say goodbye to KAYNA, it worked because I was sad leaving her. The other things worth mentioning on the first island is the Anjanath, which I finally got around to fighting. Anjanath did me proud. He was pretty hard to fight, but I overcame him. I really want to get his armor and all that, but I can't kill whatever I need to get it. Like, I think that unlocks later on. So I can't build the armor set. I can't build any of his stuff. And it's unfortunate because it's like the best armor set that you can get right now. So that is a really big tease on the game to be like, oh, cool, you killed an Anjanath. Look at all the cool things you could build with it. If only you could find more, which I have not found at this point. Story point. So what happened? Okay, so the Anjanath showed up. We met briefly we saw that we're getting stalked by a kid who really looks like a kind of kid I would want to slap around. Not that I slap around kids, but this kid, he's got like 90s kid villain vibes to him. His Palico is pretty cool, but I think his name is Kyle. He hasn't been like properly introduced. He just looks a little villainous. I'm hesitant to like call him out on too many bad things because his dad did die, so like his thirst for vengeance is kind of warranted, and he's just been in the shadows so far, so I'm not sure what's gonna happen, but he's giving off pretty early douche vibes, so we'll see how that goes. We've also been introduced to KAYNA, I believe, who is a Wyverian girl who knew my grandfather, and at first glance I was like, she gave me his power stone thing, whatever it's called. I know it's not a power stone, but whatever it's called. His morpher. It's not a morpher. I know. Anyways, she had that, and we're like, how did you have it? I swear to you, if this is not revealed somewhere in the story, my guess is she is my mother. I think KAYNA is my mother, or there was something between my grandfather and KAYNA. Either way, she looks young, but she's probably like 1,000 years old. If there's one thing we know from Wyverians, they don't age. So yeah, very curious to see what her story is, because I actually, in hindsight, I don't know much about the story. There's a lot of stuff that has been hidden from me so far. Everywhere we go, everybody's talking about Red, my grandfather. Cool, old looking man. I like how he looks old. Not a big fan of his young vibe, even though he kind of looks like me. Really hard to fill in his footsteps. Everywhere I go, they're like, oh, you're like Red, but you're not quite as good as Red. Oh, if only you were like Red. Oh, Red was such a great... It's like, okay, I get it. My grandfather was the best person in the world, and next to him, I am poo-poo. It's just like they're really ramming it over the head that my grandfather was the best person to ever exist and live, and I, as his offspring, who knows what happened to my father? Like, was my father not important? Clearly my grandfather had such big impressions. My father probably like banished himself in humiliation, and now it's my turn where I'm just like, I can't live up to this legacy. My dad ran away. What am I gonna do? So interesting setup. I'm really curious to see how that's gonna play out. So we left the island. We made it to chapter 2, Rudo Village. Beautiful village. We are at 2 for 2 at this point. We got a beautiful beach village, and now we got a beautiful forest village. I would live in either of these villages. They look amazing, and this game just keeps giving me what I want. Beautiful music, beautiful scenery, beautiful gameplay, just beautiful everything. Beautiful tutorial waifu. So we traded KAYNA for Alwyn, and as much as I want to be salty about it, Alwyn's a pretty cool guy. I have to say, Alwyn, he's got the looks, he's got the Ligiana, and he's got a pretty cool kinship move with that Ligiana. And he's an archer, so like, you know, it's an okay trade. I mean, there is no good trade for KAYNA, but I'll take it with Alwyn. We also got introduced to the elder of this village, Elder Maulo, which I have to say, major douche vibes again. This guy comes across as super judgmental, and his like voice actor, I don't know, there's something weird about his voice actor that makes him sound like a little amateurish, but he's just constantly giving you like trouble for just existing or for just being there, and he keeps sending you off on errands, and finally he teaches you how to breed the monsties, or chant rite of passage or channeling, whatever it's called. So did not like that character, did not feel like I belonged. I felt like I was unwelcome in this village. In this new area, I love that it was a lot bigger. There was more stuff to explore. I learned about royal monsters, so I found a sleeping Tigrex, wiped out. Leveled up, wiped out again. So the sleeping Tigrex lay in sleep once more until I will be properly leveled to take him on. I like the idea of royal monsters hanging around that you can like, they are optional and they are a skill challenge. I swear I was like one hit away from killing that Tigrex. So I could probably get him if I did it, if I went back to him now. I heard there were others. I haven't explored too much of the area as much as I should have, but I love that mechanic. This game just keeps on delivering good stuff. Speaking of good stuff, I've now explored more weapons. So in the demo, I had played with sword and shield, the hammer, and the bow. Now I have experimented with the gun lance. Oh wait, I also did greatsword. Now I have experimented with the gun lance and the hunting horn. The gun lance is really cool, and it has a lot of potential that I'm not exploiting. Like the skills actually let you pull off an attack while filling your kinship gauge, which I don't think any other weapon does that, which is really cool. And then the hunting horn, not a big fan of it because it's all about buffing, and I'm that RPG player that doesn't worry about buffing hard. It's just like high defense, high strength, do more damage, take less damage. I'm very black and white that way, so I'm not big into buffs unless I find like a really good flow for buffing. So the hunting horn, not appealing. The gun lance, I like it, but I prefer the bow's animation, but I prefer the gun lance's playstyle. So that's a tough one to pick between. Speaking of fighting, I discovered a whole new level of mechanics to the fight. So before I had the whole rock, paper, scissors stuff understood. I had kinship skills. I was starting to dabble with skills. And what is the other thing that you got to worry about in those fights? Oh, the weapon type. Now I learned if you match your monsty's weapon attack type with yours, and it actually trumps the monsty who's targeting either of you, you cancel that attack, which is a whole other level of strategy, because now I'm like, okay, now I can actually avoid damage when I'm getting targeted if I guess right. So I'm like even more rewarded for learning the patterns. Love that. I also learned some skills that let you completely dodge. So like if there's an attack coming that you know is going to be like really bad, your main character can dodge or block. So whole new mechanics to just reduce my damage, which makes everything feel like just deeper in terms of fight. And I'm only at like level 15. Like this game just keeps raising like the bar for me, and I'm just loving every moment of it, as maybe you can tell. So that was pretty much like the key things. I've unlocked genetics, so now I can actually do like genetic breeding between my monsties, which I'm really liking, and I could see how this becomes an addictive thing that like blows up my gameplay time. Like I'm just at level 50, I'm like, oh, I could optimize by like leveling up this gene, I could put this gene with this gene, and like I have so few monsters and so few genes, I can only imagine what this is going to look like at endgame. It's going to be crazy. I'm going to probably start playing off screen when I'm done the story, because I'm just going to be like, it's so hard to play this game once a week because I want to play it so much, but I also want to share the whole initial experience with all of you. But when we get to endgame, I'm doing some off-screen grinding to do some crazy stuff, and then I'm going to be showing that off on stream. In this area, there was a lot of cool monsters I like. We got our Basarios back, and I love how he was introduced as like, oh, he's hiding amongst the rocks. I love one of his attacks where he gets angry. It just looks like he's bashful because he's got like red face. And so I called my first Basarios Bashful. He's my bashful Basarios. And he's so cute because he's like, I'm mad, but I am really shy. And then he attacks you. But then you block and you kill him. There's also a Nargacuga, which was cool. I love the fact that I can ride a Nargacuga and be all stealth in the overworld. Really love that ability. I love my banana snake that I can go swimming. Not so good on land. By banana snake, I mean the Royal Ludroth. Fought the boss here too, Arathian. I love how all the bosses of the area so far have been like very old school Monster Hunter monsters. I don't know how old Anjanath is, but these were like some of my big initial impression monsters in Monster Hunter World, and now they are my bosses in an RPG. It just feels so sweet. And like the first thing I saw Arathian, I'm like, I'm cutting that tail. I don't want some poison, cut the tail. And it's so cool how the knowledge you acquire in the classic Monster Hunter games transfer to Monster Hunter stories. Like it's just such a good blend. They did such a good job. I also discovered a Tetsukabra, which is a monster I was not familiar with. I have learned now that it is the monster that sits in the guild hub in Rise. That's a baby. Very disappointed you can't ride that, but man, I love its armor set. Like this is a monster I went out of my way to kill more than I would have just to get its armor set because it looks so cool. Why can't you ride it? I don't know. Like he would have been so cool as like a big mammothy thing that I can ride, but Capcom said no. There was also the Yangaruga, which looks really cool, and I heard there's like different variants, but mine has like a broken like eye and face, and he looks so cool. Like I actually love riding this. Out of all the monsters I have access to, I think the Yangaruga is my favorite just because he looks like a badass and he's pretty good in battle, but I just love riding Yangaruga. So currently where I'm at, Yangaruga is top monster. I think it's Yangaruga. The thing that looks like it's a weirdly breeded and came out at the end of Monster Hunter World Iceborne for me. Finally, the only other things I have to say is just before starting chapter 3, where like just before arriving to the third village, I was introduced to Zamtries, I think he's called. He's like a man shark. A really cool design, kind of gross. And I love the fact that during this fight, I was able to predict pretty much everything he was going to throw at me. I had very little trouble fighting him. And that told me like, I have understood all the mechanics the game wants me to learn at this point, because it has a cycle. I'm just like, okay, we do this, we do this, we do this. Like once you learn its initial like cycle of attacks. It's so easy to counter everything. He barely damaged me except for maybe the first time he didn't attack, and I was like, okay, I gotta learn like what his pattern is. This game is just so good. I'm really enjoying it. And then we kill him and we got introduced to, oh, I don't know her name yet, but she is apparently one of the characters from the first game, and she looks cool too. She is an improvement over Alwyn. She might be able to compete against KAYNA, but I haven't spent enough time with her yet, so we're gonna see. Looking forward to see where this goes in terms of the story. So we're still exploring these pits. We just awoke Ratha, who's really cool to ride. Actually, Ratha is cooler to ride than Jan Garuga. I almost forgot about that. But I can't really, oh yeah, I do use him in battle, but he's not that great in battle yet. So yeah, he hatched. Everybody's like, oh no, it's the end of the world. And we're like, come on, he's just a baby. What's he gonna do? And then they're like, okay, you have to go see like this elder in another village to learn how to do something with him. And now we're there. At the same time, we're finding all these pits and these holes. We don't know what they are. The Rathalos have left the island. So I am in complete like WTF. What is going on in this world? What's happening? Who's Kyle? What is he going to do? What's Ratha going to do? What's the old man going to do? Who's going to get this kitty some donuts? What's happening? And honestly, it's not taking that much of my headspace because I'm spending so much time just collecting eggs, farming monsters, building cool armor. It's really rare that I will get sucked into a game, an RPG's mechanics, and kind of forget about the story. I usually get sucked into stories so bad that I kind of like want to rush through to get more story, and I don't explore as much. Monster Hunter Stories 2 is doing the opposite, where I actually want to spend more time exploring, finding things, instead of just like beelining it through the story. So we'll see how that goes. Those are my first impressions. I'll be releasing these journals pretty much as I hit key moments and I have enough like story beats to share with you. So I'll see you in the next journal or on the next stream. And until then, keep it classy.